officially, with this release, it's done, because the whole collection that was, all the agencies, everybody that did the investigation and inquiry did it and sent it to NARA, the National Archives. One document we saw last night says that the CIA was very curious about how Oswald got into Russia and how he got in so quickly, which helps resolve the question of the long-standing thing, well, the CIA put him into Russia. Well, if the CIA put him into Russia, they shouldn't have been so concerned about how it happened. And so, that this may be helpful in some of those areas. Like, well, wait a minute. If you did it, you would know, wouldn't you? Why are you worried? Well, the initial reaction is that from a history standpoint, it's great. I mean, we always like seeing that, because some of these are going to have history that we haven't seen. For example, one document was a memorandum from Arthur Schlesinger to President Kennedy that responded to President Kennedy's request for advice on what to do with the CIA. That we'd known that document existed. It had been redacted fully, so we didn't know what the response was. Now we can see that Schlesinger was recommending some very strong measures about what to do with the CIA, what functions to assign other places, what restraints to put on it. So that's really good history. As far as resolving JFK's assassination, nothing directly about that. So good news is we're seeing some new history. We're seeing some new details. Basically, what we're seeing in the redactions that have been removed so far are names and identities and sources, which is what the CIA and FBI said that they were protecting, and that is what is now being released. So that's good news for us document geeks who can go back and say, okay, yeah, we knew what they were talking about. Now we know who they were talking about. Unfortunately, some of that will be probably embarrassing to the agencies, especially in regards to names and sources of international contacts and sources, including British intelligence, Australian intelligence. You're going to see some things where information is being provided that, you can see why they wouldn't have wanted to provide at the time. The sad theory is the family of the seamen that were lost on the Thresher submarine, I think in 1962, felt that JFK had been responsible for that, and there was a theory that somehow this was revenge against JFK. That's just sad. The wackiest theory I've seen is a map was submitted to the Warren Commission. Now, we're talking about a map. I've seen this. This is an actual document. Huge map by this fellow who thought that Lyndon Johnson had somehow jumped out of the limo that was following the president, taken a machine gun, and attacked the president. It's like, okay, yeah, wacky feel. And of course there are the equally wacky. JFK was about to tell the world that the aliens are here, and that's why he was killed. The key questions that we still have remaining, of course, was Oswald involved at all? Lee Harvey Oswald is, the whole thing was positioned and put on him as a lone nut, single, no conspiracy, single actor. So really the primary question that remains was, was Oswald involved in some fashion, or did he have no role at all, and was he literally framed? As I said, the book that I've just published with my co-author on Lee Harvey Oswald, The Oswald Puzzle, presents him as having no role at all, totally framed by these other individuals who actually had contacted him in New Orleans that summer, representing themselves as pro-Castro supporters. And Oswald was very much interested in going to Cuba, supporting the Cuban Revolution, and basically that view of things has him manipulated and being set up as part of a conspiracy which would point to Castro and possibly trigger an invasion, which is, another resolution to the problem from the CIA officers in Cuban exile standpoint is, let's not just eliminate President Kennedy as an issue. Let's trigger we need to get this done. Let's frame Oswald, point to Cuba and Castro, and get it done. And actually, there were phone calls to the wife of Life magazine, Henry Luce's wife, that evening, essentially saying that they had evidence that would show Oswald was part of a Cuban rifle team that had been sent through Mexico to kill JFK. So that was actually part and parcel of the plan. That didn't work because it was kind of overwhelmed by the lone nut story. Basically, by that evening, the president was having calls made to Dallas saying, forget it, no conspiracy. Do not charge him with conspiracy. We don't want conspiracy at all. We want control of the narrative, and that worked, and kind of just at least aborted the second half of their plan. The White House actually began releasing, or more like re-releasing, the JFK files collection that has been on the National Archives and in the National Archives for some time. This consists of some 3,200 documents, but lots of pages, like 60,000 pages worth of documents last night. That does not include some 2,300 either documents or pages. We're not sure yet because they didn't say, that the FBI found a couple of weeks ago and said that they were giving to NARA that had not been part of the collection before. So we don't know what's in those. We don't know where they came from. We don't know why they didn't find them before. So we haven't seen any of those yet. So what we've seen so far is material that was already at NARA. Beyond that, we can give you a list. We've actually prepared a list of dozens of files and dozens of pieces of material that could be collected that might help resolve the question, but that's not part of this. A congressional committee, a new investigation would actually go out and have to collect those. And that includes, for example, Jackie Kennedy gave extensive testimony, and others. She actually had William Manchester write a book about the assassination of her husband. And Manchester interviewed several key people, including Jackie and Bobby. And after those interviews were done, and we know Jackie and Bobby both thought there was a domestic conspiracy. We now have records showing that. Those records have been sealed at the Kennedy Library. We can't get them. We can't see them. The Kennedy family controls them, and we're not going to see them for another 50 years, if ever. There's an original film that Life magazine took and collected, and collections of original films that were made in Dealey Plaza that are held outside the government by the media. Those films could resolve things, but there's no way to collect them. So to answer your question, the bad part is what we need to see would have to somehow legally be recollected, and there's no initiative to do that at the moment. That would require legislation, a presidential directive. So what we really need, there would have to be a reset to collect new information. That's not what we're getting now. The problem is with all this research, we know we have testimony and actual documents saying that the CIA itself, after the assassination, investigated its own people and its Cuban exile surrogates and Cuban forces. They were so concerned that the Cuba had been part of it that they internally did an investigation. They lied to the Warren Commission and the House Select Committee and told them that they had never even looked into the assassination at all. But we even have the questions that were asked in the investigation they did now. What we don't have is the report that they made for the results of that investigation. And I don't believe we're ever going to have that. So no, that was certainly never provided as part of the JFK collection. And I suspect that it disappeared shortly after it was prepared.